What's up, friend? This is Alex, and if you clicked on this video, I suppose you have an interest in learning how to make your orchestral melodies stand out more in your mix, how to make them more prominent and more powerful. This tutorial is gonna teach you one way in which you can do that in a completely effortless manner, which is using the Marcato articulation for your melodies. Now, this is not rocket science, it's actually pretty simple, so this video is gonna be very short. And if you're an advanced composer, you might be using the Marcato articulation already, so you don't need to watch this video at all. But if you're a beginner, maybe you do the mistake of only using two articulations, the sustain and the staccato, because usually that's the only ones we know as beginners. We see terms like marcato, portato, tremolo, and flutter tongue, and pizzicato, and crescendo, and whatnot, and we think, what the hell is this? Vibrato, what is this? I just want to use the things I know. So that's what beginners do, and they avoid those articulations entirely. But in terms of learning how to compose orchestral music in a professional manner, using all the articulations is key. Now, this is something that I already mentioned in many of my tutorials in the past, and if you're new here, you might want to check out my tutorials, because I made like 50s or 100 at this point, I don't know. And I talked about these things in the past already, but I haven't made specific videos for each articulation. Actually, if you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comments right now, so I can see if there is demand for me to make more of these videos on articulations, which are very interesting and important to make orchestral music. Now, for the Marcato, I have this example, which is the Star Wars track I composed the other day. And the first example of it uses Marcato for the main melodies, and the second example only uses sustain. So I wanted to show you the difference of using Marcato and sustain for the melodies. So this is the Marcato version. Okay, so obviously in this song, the choir is carrying the main melody and the French horn and brass are carrying sort of like the countermelodies, and sometimes they blend in together. But that's what you heard. It was very powerful, right? You heard them in the front. Now check out the version, same song, same arrangement, same melodies, same everything, but I left them on sustain instead of using Marcato. You almost don't hear the main melodies at all. Now, that could be fixed if I increase the volume of my choir a lot, for example, but that wouldn't be organic, wouldn't be natural. It would be like increasing the volume of someone whispering, and that's not like the sustain is whispering, but let me tell you now the difference between sustain and Marcato. Now, when you compose orchestral music, actually a good practice to do is to sing what you compose, because when we sing, we use articulations naturally. We don't know the names usually, but we're using articulation. So if I'm singing that, those are long notes, and I'm using my voice, but in a very like soft manner, because I want to be able to keep on singing these very super long notes, right? Super long notes without interrupting myself. Marcato instead is like da da da. And between those, like, sorry, excuse me my bad singing, but between those very strong notes, very strong syllables, you have to catch breath, because you're playing like da, unless you have a very like strong breath, you're gonna need to catch breath. You're gonna need to do pauses. But the idea is that you blow more air, more energy into every single note, and that's Marcato. That's when you do like a sort of like long note, but that has a maximum, you know, length kind of. Now, in this way, like if you have someone singing, like in the first example where I was singing softly, and someone singing with the one you're gonna hear the most is the one screaming, the one playing Marcatos. With orchestral instruments, it's the same. So what I did here, if you just hear the brass and the choir, is that. So we have one voice doing this. So this choir library, actually, I want to talk about it, is called Oceania. It's from Performance Samples. Now, all the libraries from Performance Samples, in which, like in this song, I'm using, I think, 3. I'm using Oceania on the choir, I'm using Fluid Shorts on the short strings, and Caspian on the brass. these libraries are awesome, and especially for beginners, I think, because when you're a beginner, usually you don't think about articulations. But the idea behind these libraries is that they adapt to what you write. So when you write a short note like this one, they play staccato. When you write a long note like this one, it plays Marcato. And if I keep on holding that note, it becomes sort of like a sustain. So I'm kind of cheating here. But the idea is, as you see, there's breaks in between my notes, you know, because I'm playing Marcato alternating with staccato. Staccato are even more powerful than Marcatos because they don't need to be held for like 1-2 seconds. Staccato is like, you know, so that's very short and you can just scream your lungs out. Now, the other choir voices, we have this one. This that's a beautiful example of Marcato and staccato. And when you do these sort of things, you leave the holes and you use such powerful articulations. You create a beautiful contrast between you know, music and silence, between notes being played in the melody and silence. So when you have those breaks in the melodies, it creates a beautiful effect. Like for example, this voice is also replicated, I think, in the bass trombone. So that, you know, when you have those holes, you just, you know, create beautiful and more powerful melodies. Naturally. It becomes way more hearable over the chords the chords behind that. That's how I use Marcato. And again, like if you use libraries like Oceania from Performance Samples or Caspian, like this one is Caspian here on the French horn. Like here with the bass trombone, I'm doing crescendos, and that's another thing for another tutorial maybe. But that's, you know, if I use Caspian, and Caspian creates this sort of notes here, which are sort of like sustains at this point, and then I do this sort of like automation here that falls and rises, like that thing there is like crescendo, and it's just playing chords underneath my soaring melodies, which are playing Marcatos. And yeah, so the whole Marcatos together at the end, they end up sounding like this. It's like Marcatos and staccatos together. While with sustains, if I isolate the choir and brass, you might hear it now because it's isolated, but when I play with the rest, choir kind of disappears, and it's kind of weird that you have these super long French horns and brass being so loud compared to the rest. So like just like by using sustain on every single instrument here, I'm creating mess in my mix because it's difficult now to tell what is the main element, what is the background element, and everything. While when I'm using, you know, Marcato and staccatos for the things I want to be in the front, and sustain for the things I want to be in the back, that naturally creates the effect of having this very clear orchestration. So you should totally try to use Marcatos, and if you use Marcatos, try to alternate between Marcato and staccato, which is what I did in the choir. You see, like these long notes and then these staccatos, whatever. And by the way, the ways in which I recommend you to manage your articulations are multiple. You can either get Oceania or Caspian or those libraries from Performance Samples, which change the articulation for you based on how you play, how you write. So it saves you the trouble. Or you can use a normal library and open not the normal patches, but the multi-patches. As you see here, like for example, this Metropolis Arc multi-patch has 4 articulations in it. And then you can use the key switch on your keyboard accordingly to the patch to change the articulation. Or if you have FL Studio, which is even better in this case, you can use this program called BRSO Articulate, which is going to link the articulations to the colors of your notes. So as you see here, these long notes have a different color from the short notes. And this color stands for Marcato long, and the short, like this, you know, very light celeste color, stands for staccato in my BRSO Articulate. So that's what I use for triggering my articulation changes. And I highly recommend you to do this opposite to opening like a sustain patch and a staccato patch and a Marcato patch, because then when you do that, it becomes very hard to write music that way. So use multis or use the performance sample libraries. I hope the other developers will follow in their footsteps because it's very intuitive the way those libraries are developed. But yeah, that's all for this tutorial, and I hope you learned something. And also, if you are interested in learning how to write melodies, actually, because I explained how to make them stand out, but if you want to learn how to compose original melodies by ear and counter melodies by ear, I have a tutorial about that called How to Write Great Melodies and Counter Melodies by Ear, which I'm going to link in the top right of the screen right now. I also have another tutorial called 2 tips to make melodies stand out in any arrangement, which talks about another thing entirely, along with this third tutorial about melodies and Marcato. So if you watch all those 3 tutorials, you're gonna become the melody master, kind of, in orchestral music. And yeah, my YouTube tutorial channel is full of tutorials, but those are the ones I recommend to watch on melodies. If you want to see more tutorials from me about articulation, specifically like this one, let me know in the comments right now. And if you have questions, let me know right now, because I usually answer those. And if you like this video, please give it a like so more people can see it on YouTube, and share it with your friends so more people can see it. And that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one, which is hopefully gonna be next week, but I don't know. Because as you might have noticed, my surroundings here are different from usual, because now I'm in my new apartment in London, which doesn't have a decent internet connection. So they're gonna fix it next week, hopefully, but I'm not even sure how I'm gonna upload this video on YouTube. But if you don't see me active much on YouTube, it's because they still haven't fixed my internet connection here in London. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope it helped you out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.